Bonjour tout le monde, c'est moi Charlotte et aujourd'hui nous allons parler des excuses. So, hi everyone, I'm Charlotte and today for our French Club video, this is actually the February 2023 video, we'll be looking at excuses. So, we're actually a week later than intended and that's what made me think, oh, we'll talk about excuses, giving reasons for not being able to do something or for not being somewhere. So I had a little think about the kind of excuses that we might come across, and I went for some kind of like quite school related excuses, you know, like the dog ate my homework, I forgot my notebook, that kind of thing, and then a few silly ones. But the main thing is really to understand how to form sentences in the past tense. So we've got two past tense here, I think, yeah, le passé composé, that's like the most common one. So that's when you say things like I ate or I have eaten. Both of those ways you just say one way in French, j'ai mangé. That could be I have eaten or I ate something. So we've got le passé composé, and then we've also got one instance, I think, of the imparfait. Imparfait is the imperfect tense. So normally that's when you're talking about like something ongoing in the past, like a state of being, like I was ill, I was feeling ill, I wasn't feeling very well, that kind of thing. Or the imperfect can be used to talk about something you did habitually in the past, but we're just talking about things that sort of happened or reasons for things, so excuses basically. So we've got 8 of them. I'm going to read them through, show you how they're written on the board, and then we'll look out for basically like things like possessive adjectives, verb phrases, obviously some actual ways of like some structures of forming the past tense, but they should be quite familiar. What else? Yeah, some verb phrases are the main thing, and also just remembering the difference or noticing the difference, how to form verbs that use être as the auxiliary verb, and verbs that use être as the auxiliary verb. I think we've got at least 2 of them here, as opposed to verbs that take avoir. Okay, so we'll come to that in a minute. So let's start. On y va. Okay, the first one I mentioned is the dog ate my homework. Pourquoi tu n'as pas fait les devoirs? Je suis désolée madame, c'est parce que mon chien a mangé mes devoirs. Okay, I'm sorry miss, I haven't done my homework because the dog ate it, okay? So, I haven't got my homework because the dog ate it. So, mon chien, there it is. Mon chien a mangé mes devoirs. So that's like word for word the same sort of structure as in English. So we've got the word for my, but there's 3 ways of saying my. You can say mon, or ma, or me. So it all depends on the gender and the number, if you like, of the noun that you're talking about. My dog, for example, the word dog is, say, le chien. Un chien, it's a masculine word, right? So we're saying mon chien. That's the masculine singular adjective, possessive adjective there. Mon chien a mangé. So that bit there is the verb phrase. That's the bit that makes it the past tense. And it's in the il, elle, on. Third person singular. So not je, not tu, but the il, elle, on line when you look at a verb conjugation table. Okay? Normally it's like the third line down. Singular as in it's talking about one person or thing. In this case it's an animal, and that animal is the subject of the sentence. It's the thing that does something, right? The thing it does, il a mangé, he ate, he has eaten. A comes from avoir, he has, or le chien a mangé. Manger is the past participle of the verb manger, right? So the verb to eat is written like this. I'll show you on my tableau blanc, the whiteboard. Manger, that means to eat. Now when you put that in the past, to make it a past participle, like to mean ate or eaten, you take off the R and you add an accent aigu, okay, and an acute accent, and then you use the verb avoir. So if I want to say I ate or I have eaten, I need to use the verb avoir, which means to have. I have, j'ai mangé, I have eaten. Again, it could mean I have eaten or I ate, right? So it's got two ways of being translated in the... C'est quoi ce bruit là? What's that noise? J'ai mangé. So manger is a nice, common, probably the most, like, the first verb that you'll have encountered when you start learning French. Mes devoirs. Now, devoir. If that didn't have an S on the end, it would look like the verb devoir, which means to have to do something, or must, like je dois aller, je dois partir, I have to go now. Maintenant je dois partir. So that's the verb devoir, and it's sort of related because it's something that you have to do. Homework is something that you have to do, right? But devoir, the noun, I have to do my homework, or the dog ate my homework. That's a noun, right? And in French, it's a plural noun, so it's got an S at the end. It's not mon devoir, it's mes devoirs, with the kind of the work that I have to do, if you like. Me, okay? So, that's excuse number one. Excuse number two, I feel like we have to zoom in a bit there. J'étais malade. So this is the imperfect tense, or this is an example of the imperfect tense. So instead of saying j'ai été malade, which also makes sense, I have been sick, if you like, this is the imperfect tense. Okay, so this is, instead of using two verbs, the auxiliary, like here, and the past participle manger, we've just got one verb. Okay, it's a simple tense. That means it's got one verb, one word that's been conjugated. Okay, and conjugation is when the verb, like être, this is the verb to be, être, looks like this. That's the infinitive form. If you look up the verb to be in a dictionary, you'll have être. But if you want to say I was, like I was sick, all day yesterday I was sick, right? I couldn't come because I was sick. Then you take that verb and you put it in the je form, and then you put it in the imperfect, I was sick. And it looks like that. That's a simple tense because there's just one verb conjugation, okay? And j'étais starts with an E, and because je is followed by the verb that starts with an E, then you use a little apostrophe, take off the E from je and put était after it, and it becomes j'étais rather than je étais, okay? J'étais malade. Malade means sick or unwell, right? Poorly. So there's three ways there that you can translate that in terms of like not being physically well. Malade could also mean like someone's sick in the head, you know, like, il est malade, quoi. He is a sicko, that kind of thing. But here it means like I was unwell. J'étais malade. Now the j'ai été malade looks like this. J apostrophe A-I. I have, and then we get the verb être in its past participle. J'ai été. It's sort of akin to I have been. Okay, like you could use that for like I've been to somewhere, like a place. J'ai été malade versus j'étais malade. That little difference is quite subtle. Depends on context. Could sometimes kind of be used interchangeably. But you could say, for example, j'ai été malade 2 fois dans ma vie, kind of thing. I've been sick twice in my life. But j'étais malade is the one I've chosen here. It's the imperfect tense. If you just need to get across the fact that you weren't well, you could kind of use either of them, okay? Don't worry too much about that. We'll try and, at some point, dedicate a video to that imperfect versus the passé composé. Do that another time. So, mon chien a mangé mes devoirs. My dog ate my homework. J'étais malade, I was ill. Let's look at the next one. Mon ordinateur, that's my computer. We've got mon again. Ordinateur, the thing that ordinates. my computer basically. Est tombé en panne. So this is a nice little verb phrase, kind of idiomatic phrase. So tomber en panne is the verb tomber, which literally means to fall. Tomber. Je suis tombé, that means I fell. En panne means like failure, basically. So it fell into disrepair, it broke, it doesn't work, it's... What else would we say? It's not out of order, it's not quite right. If you're talking about a car, in English you'd say my car broke down. That kind of thing. Tomber en panne means to not be functioning, okay? Now that verb tomber is conjugated in the past tense with the verb être. So, here we have, instead of mon ordinateur a tombé en panne, we have mon ordinateur est tombé. The est, just there, that's from the verb être. Okay, so the verb tomber, or the verb aller, or partir, or there's like a whole little list of verbs. There's lots that, most verbs are conjugated with avoir. I have done something, but some of them, and they're often verbs of like movement, coming, going, falling, for example, conjugated with être. So, mon ordinateur est tombé en panne. Also, you've got other verb phrases with tomber. There's like tomber malade, to fall sick. So, if I said I fell sick, I got sick basically, but specifically with that kind of verb phrase, tomber malade. Je suis tombé malade. In fact, I'll write it down. Je suis tombé malade. So, I'll show you something that happens here. Je suis tombé. That's the I fell bit. There's an extra E there because that past participle agrees with my gender. I'm a girl, so I would say je suis tombé malade. Sounds the same as if a boy said I fell sick. Je suis tombé malade. But in the written form, it's got an extra E. So let's try and put the whole thing there so you can actually see. Oh, je suis tombé amoureux. Je suis tombée amoureuse. That's I fell in love. Je suis tombé. Right? I fell. And then we could say amoureux. In love. Amoureuse. Je suis tombée amoureuse. Oui. Just thinking about that amorous adjective. Yes, amoureux, amoureuse. What's the other one? Malade. Okay, so that's quite useful actually, because malade is an adjective. It means sick or unwell or poorly. Voilà. Je suis tombé malade. Oh, je suis tombé malade. I feel sick. Je suis tombé amoureux. Je suis tombée amoureuse. So amoureux is the masculine, amoureuse is the feminine. So if I said I fell in love, I'd say je suis tombée amoureuse. If I said I fell sick, je suis tombée malade. So there's a masculine version and a feminine version of that adjective, but this adjective is the same for like a girl or a boy. So not all adjectives change, but most of them do, I'd say. So the ones that end with EUX, the U ending, tend to go to U's. Okay? Again, you can do a whole video on like adjectives and how they change depending on gender. So, what was the point? Mon ordinateur est tombé en panne. Do you remember what it means? My computer broke. Right, broke down. Doesn't work, needs fixing, that kind of thing. Right. Numéro 4. Let's look at number 4. So, number 4. So, number 3. Mon ordinateur est tombé. Est tombé is conjugated with être. You see, the verb is an ER verb. T-O-M-B, E with an accent, okay? That's quite normal for ER verbs. They're past participles. To fell or falling. Here we've got another. Oh, let's go down a bit. common ER verb, oublier. Oublier. It means to forget. So this is the past participle. Sorry, this is the past participle. Oublier. Just take off the R, and then you add an accent aigu, little acute accent. Voilà. And then you have the verb avoir in front of it. So j'ai is I have, and you would use that for like j'ai deux frères, j'ai beaucoup d'argent, whatever. I have, I possess, whatever. But you also use it as the first part of the passé composé structure for most verbs. Okay, like I said, some of them take être instead, but this is avoir. Avoir, to have. And then there's oublier. So, what have we oublié? J'ai oublié mon cahier. Cahier. So that's sort of a school-related one. Un cahier, actually it's not just schools who have cahiers. J'en ai au moins 5 juste par ici. So, un cahier is a notebook. I've got loads of them over here. I've got at least 5. Loads. Can't get any of them, but there are loads of them. That kind of thing, you know. Voilà, okay. J'en ai beaucoup. I've got lots of them. So, un cahier is a notebook. So, if you're at school or a meeting and you can't partake, you're not prepared, you haven't done your homework, you could say, oh, je suis désolé, mais j'ai oublié mon cahier. Yeah, I have forgotten my notebook. Mon cahier. Look at the way that's written. Cahier. Cahier. Now, if it was just hier, it would be the word for yesterday, and it would be pronounced hier. Hier. But it's pronounced completely differently when it's got ca in front of it. Cahier. I like that little word, cahier. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's find 5, 6, 7, 8. Elles ne sont pas là. They're not there, are they? Where are they? Bizarrement. Attends. Where have they gone now? Ah, voilà. Les voilà. There they are. Okay, this is a silly one. Or maybe not. So, by the way, if you're part of my club, you'll have this handout, right? So you've got little images which can help give you clues to the meaning of these phrases, these excuses, these sentences. So here is the image for number 5, numéro 5. J'ai été, now this is like the passive voice. I have been, right? J'ai été enlevé par des extraterrestres. Now this is something of interest to me actually. Des extraterrestres. Aliens. Extraterrestrials, okay? So, enlevé par. Right, so we'd say abducted, right? I have been, or I got abducted by aliens. So, enlevé isn't just abducted, but it's, removed, taken. Yeah, to be to remove or to take off or away, if you like. So that's a verb that you would probably use for that context, aliens. I thought that would be quite a fun one. And also we have j'ai été, so you've got the past participle there of être. Okay? Être, which looks like that. That means to be. But then it's the passive voice is formed in this way. You have past participle, but it doesn't have to be past. It could be a few different compound tenses actually, but you basically got j'ai été, to have been, plus another past participle after that, okay? To have been seen. d'être, oh, excusez-moi, j'ai été vu par, or j'ai été, I don't know, regardé par, right, looked at, watched, seen by, right, so when you use the passive voice, instead of placing the emphasis kind of on the you, like I, je, is no longer really the subject of the verb. The emphasis kind of put on the action being undertaken by the, in this case, les extraterrestres. I have been abducted by them. They abducted me would kind of be an active voice, but a passive voice is when something happens to you. Like the cat has eaten the mouse. No, the cat ate the mouse. The mouse has been eaten by the cat, okay? The mouse has been eaten by the cat is like the passive voice. Anyway, doesn't matter, that's a whole nother video again. So here we have enlever, that's the past participle. Now, often with passive voices, if an action has been undertaken, or an action has been undertaken towards, like an object if you like, I have been abducted by aliens, then you have the preposition par, okay, the person who has performed the action. And if you don't see that par, you might instead see de, okay, so you see prepositions de and par sometimes with passive voice sentences, but again it's still the past tense. J'ai été is just a passive voice. So here, what's this one? Numéro 6. Ma maison a pris feu. Pris feu. Okay, so this is from the verb phrase prendre feu. Feu is fire, so prendre feu is like to catch fire. Set alight or caught fire. Prendre feu. So normally prendre means to take, but the verb phrase prendre feu is like an idiomatic way of saying catch fire, catch a light sort of thing. Like my house burnt down, okay? Right, ma maison. So we've had mon ordinateur, mon chien, mes devoirs, and now we've got ma maison. So they're quite common words actually, and they're the three versions of my that you get, the possessive adjective mon plus a singular masculine noun, ma plus a singular feminine noun, and mes plus any plural noun. It could be masculine nouns, feminine nouns, or a mixture thereof, which is nice. Mes is quite a useful one, and it's the equivalent of le, la, les, mon, ma, mes. Okay, but the possessive. So my house caught a light. Not very nice. Okay, this one again, I think it's not really silly, but kind of maybe a little bit. Not if it happens to you, I'm sure. Mon hamster. So we've got two options here. Mon hamster. Hamster, hamster of course, looks exactly the same as the way English people or English speaking people spell it. Mon hamster est mort. So mourir means to die. And it's one of those verbs that takes être when it's conjugated. So il est mort means he died. Okay? And mon hamster est mort, my hamster died. But if we're talking about, say, ma perruche, which is my parakeet, that's a feminine noun. Ma perruche, P-E-2-R-U-C-H-E. So this one happens to be a masculine noun, that happens to be feminine. But if you're talking about a female or a noun that's feminine which died, because that verb is conjugated with être, elle est morte. You have to put an E at the end, right? So here, that past participle has an E at the end, which not only changes the spelling, but it also changes the pronunciation, right? So instead of mort, mon hamster est mort, he is dead, he died, you would say ma perruche est morte, morte, right? So elle est morte, il est mort, il est mort, elle est morte. So if you know someone who died who's a female, you'd say elle est morte. If you know a man who died, you'd say il est mort, mort, morte. It's like the same meaning, but the adjective or the past participle, depending on how you use it, agrees with the gender and also the number of the subject you're describing. So that's a sad one. Again, with these kind of things, you don't have to take away just like the structures or like the more man-made. You can also take away the verbs, how you conjugate them, or which auxiliary verb you use, and you can use them like not hypothetically, like metaphorically. Mon amour est mort, or ma vie est morte, or whatever. L'art est mort, that kind of thing. So you can talk about things which aren't necessarily vivant, like alive, and talk about them like poetically, that kind of thing. Okay, let's look at this last one. Another excuse for something. So what's this one? J'ai laissé mon portefeuille à la maison. Ah, right, so this one would be like an excuse for not paying. Je suis désolée, je ne peux pas payer parce que j'ai laissé mon portefeuille à la maison. I suppose these days you could pay with PayPal or like some other app on your phone. But if you're trying to make an excuse for not paying and you haven't got any money or you just don't want to pay, you could say j'ai laissé, I have left, I left mon portefeuille. Portefeuille is something that carries notes, or les feuilles can be notes as in banknotes, or can also mean leaves, right, like a sheet or a leaf of paper. So portefeuille is wallet. Let's have a look at how it's written. J'ai, ici, j'ai laissé, so that's to leave something somewhere, right? Leave something on a table, leave it in a train, leave it on a bus, in the car, or à la maison. À la maison means at home, in the house. Either of those, they're kind of interchangeable. In English, you've got the option of saying at home or in the house. But in French, you can just say à la maison. It's a really useful one. And because maison is la maison, it's always going to be à la maison. It's never going to be au maison, okay? It's always going to be à la, because it's a feminine word, feminine noun. So, j'ai laissé mon portefeuille à la maison. So let's see if we can check some comprehension, also your memory. So how would you say something doesn't work, or it's like broken, something that we've seen, I think it's on the previous page. Something is en panne, that means it's broken, but you can say il est tombé en panne. Mon ordinateur est tombé en panne. My computer's broken. Can't do my work. Oopsie. What else now? At home. À la maison. We just saw that one, didn't we? Voilà. À la maison. À la maison. What about I forgot? I forgot. Where did I put that one? J'ai. So in English you'd say I forgot. And you think je is I, and then forgot, how do you say forgot? But you need to get out of thinking about it that way. You need to sort of get used to thinking I have forgotten. So I forgot my phone. I forgot my keys. I left my car keys somewhere. In English we say I left. That's two words. But I want you to kind of try and think of the past tense, the passé composé, as being I have left my keys. I have seen that film, because that will help you to think of the way that the passé composé generally works with avoir. J'ai, I have, and then the past participle. So j'ai oublié, I forgot, or I have forgotten. Okay, so we've got those two options I have forgotten, I forgot in English, but in French both of those are translated as j'ai oublié. So it's really easy when you get used to like how to form the past tense. But remember, there are some verbs that take être instead of avoir. So let's see a couple of these. Do you remember what they were? I think the main one here is tomber. Tomber. Maybe it was just that verb actually. Tomber. Oh no, there's two. There's tomber and mourir. So those are two examples of verbs that take être instead of avoir. So he died would be il est mort, not il a mort. Il est mort. And like she fell would be elle est tombée. Elle est tombée. So remember, you can tomber amoureux or amoureuse de quelqu'un. You can fall in love with someone. You can fall sick. Je suis tombée malade. Or if you're talking about something that broke, you can say il est tombé en panne, or elle est tombée en panne if you're talking about something feminine like une voiture, par exemple. Okay, well, there's some nice little excuses there that, you know, hopefully some of the structures or, you know, some of the content therein should be sort of useful to you. There's also a little link that I'm going to include for my club members to une virlangue française, which is quite hard to say. So une virlangue is a tongue twister. This is quite a well-known one, and there's also a link to like a little comedy sketch, which I think is quite funny. And you can watch that. It's in French, and you can find the transcript or the captions in French underneath. It's just funny. It's a joke on how to pronounce something. So this is the virlangue. Je veux et j'exige d'exquises excuses. Je veux et j'exige d'exquises excuses. Je veux et j'exige d'exquises excuses. It's quite hard to do unless you're reading it, you know. Anyway, it means I want and I demand wonderful, something along those lines, excuses or explanations. Okay? Anyway, at the top of this we also have a couple of ways of saying like I'm sorry. So there's a few different ones. That's a whole video in itself. There's désolé, pardon, je m'excuse, je regrette que. So, and the verb s'excuser is an inflexive verb which means to excuse oneself. And if you want to forgive or excuse someone else, you can use excuser or pardonner. Okay? So it's quite a murky area. It's not as straightforward as like there's one way of saying I'm sorry. But it's also quite a fun thing to study, I think. But those excuses hopefully would be quite useful to you. Once again, forgive me for not having posted this on time, but I hope you enjoyed it, and I look forward to posting the March video in the next few weeks. Merci beaucoup et à la prochaine fois. Au revoir.